Right, hopefully we're live now. So, hi, welcome to another AMA. The last one was it even last week? It was a Friday, a while back. But this is Tuesday, 2 o'clock in London. And yeah, I'm here, I'm George.
Hi, I'm Cam.
And we've got some questions that you've already prepared and sent us. We printed these off, old school style, because we're not on the Kickstarter live stream this time. We're actually doing this through the Facebook platform. Hopefully you can still watch it on Kickstarter. We're trying to sort that out as we go. But today's AMA is focusing particularly on using a bit of external hardware. We've got, Cam's brought in a
Korg ESX electrode. I'll show you the...
top one.
There we go.
Yeah, this is the electro. Okay, so we're going to do a quick demo with that. I've also got a MIDI keyboard here. I'll just put that back over. I've also got a MIDI keyboard over here that I was going to do something with as well, potentially, and we'll answer a load of your questions. And if you have any more questions, you can just pop them in the comments here. Kelly, who's sitting over there, will shout them out to us, and we'll just answer them as we go. Sound good?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's start off with a demo. So, I've made a profile earlier. And, yeah, to output to MIDI, it's really simple. All you need to do is go into the settings and select your MIDI interface out. So you'll need some kind of USB to MIDI interface.
So here we're using, like, what's that, the Focusrite
yeah,
Scarlett?
it's just a Scarlett. It's got a 5-pin MIDI.
You can even, we've actually got, we haven't tried it, we've actually got just like USB to 5-pin where it's got the audio interface all built in. So there are lots of different ways of doing it.
Yeah. So yeah, here I've already set up my profile before. I've got the mic plugged in here, so hopefully you can see that lighting up.
And those ethereal sounds that you can hear are coming from the Korg, right?
So we'll have a look at that. So you might just be able to make out the lights here. I'll show you. We've got MIDI cable coming in here. There's the Focusrite. There's my kick. There's my hi-hat. Hopefully you can hear this okay. We've just got a mic up against the speakers there. And here's my snare.
I have so little idea of what's actually going on with the light slashing, but it's triggering the samples and it's controlling the synths.
Yeah, and all I really had to do was a little bit of work in Dubler, just making sure I've got the right notes coming out for the sounds that I want. I could even add a new one here, so I've got kick, hat and snare. I'm going to add in a different sound. So first we've got to find the right mapping.
That's nice.
Do. So now I can trigger that. I'll show you the Korg again. So that's this one here.
You just keep doing that. I'm going to switch over to a few couple of things. So lean back in. This is actually just to prove that Cam is actually just doing this by triggering on the microphone, then it's going to Dubler, and then it's going to the side cam. Here we are.
Woo. Okay.
Alright, cool.
So that's an example of triggering drums. What we can also do, the great thing about this electrode is it's got a synth built into it as well.
Nice.
So I can go ahead and turn on my synth controls in Dubler. What I've got here is I've locked it to a key, so I've locked it to C major, and I've also turned on my pitch bend with a range of 12.
So is that something? This like sounds like it's set up questions, but it's not. This is like the first time I've ever seen this machine. Is the pitch bend that range of 12? Is that something that's matched on the Korg?
Yeah. So it has to be matched to the Korg, otherwise when I bend up, 4 semitones, if it's not matched, it could bend up a different number of semitones.
Right. Yeah.
So I'll show you an example of that. I'll actually turn off the drums for a second.
It's a very smooth synth, that isn't it? It's nice.
So what you might also be able to see, what I'm going to do is lock these for a second. What you might might also be able to hear or see, I don't know if you can hear this very well, is that I can affect this with my vowel sounds. So what I've got mapped on the Korg, okay,
Can you listen to this?
so what I've done is I've mapped some effects to different vowel sounds. So if you look on Dubler, when I go E,
Whoa!
I made it extreme so that you can hear this.
Take off. It was still locked.
Okay, so
Nice.
let's have an example of both happening. Oh, okay. Bad beatboxing. But what this really allows you to do is to really put some expression into the synth. So one of the things, so you might be saying, why don't I just do this directly on the Korg? So one of the advantages that Dubler has for this is that these pads here, when I press them, there's only one velocity. This varies depending on what kind of hardware you've got. And because we're capturing velocity and putting that out along with the MIDI note, I can kind of get a slightly more expressive sound. So hopefully you can hear that. It's varying the velocity slightly as I use it.
Yeah, you can hear it here. So there's velocity control. I mean, I guess the other thing is that looking at those buttons kind of on the Korg, right? You'd have to be a reasonably good finger drummer.
Yeah.
And then also to do the synth stuff. How do you even do that? Is that on the like?
Yeah, you can't do synths and drums at the same time.
Okay.
Again, this all varies depending on your hardware. But yeah, for me, the most expressive things are the effects, because it's enabling me to control these different parameters at once, and I can really shape the sound, which I wouldn't be able to do.
You know what? On that, maybe it's a good opportunity for me to quickly show something. So last time we did the AMA, and it was to do with synth. Oh no! Oh my goodness! It was to do with instrument control, particularly like orchestral stuff, and we did some demos with brass and some demos with strings. And I had this demo that was showing how you could move between different string sections using the different tonality of your voice. And I've basically, what I wanted to do was get that up again, which is what I've got here. It's not going to be on the screen share because we're running on a different computer. But what I've done is get a MIDI keyboard, and where are we? Okay.
If you chuck us your speaker, I'll put that on the mic. I'm just going through a little mini rig here.
Let me just okay. Oh.
There you go.
Unplugged at the last second. All right, let's try that.
Yeah.
Right. So what I've got is exactly the same set as I had last time in terms of the the synths I've got in. But if I just play like keys on the keyboard, I'm not getting anything through, and that's because I've mapped all of the vowel sounds to different types of string instrument. So if I kind of go a bit louder. So what's happening is I'm playing the C on the keyboard, and I'm integrating the keyboard with Dubler, so that if I just play something, nothing happens. But I can actually change what synth is being played. And I could also, whilst I'm doing that, use the pitch as well to control. This is okay. I'm not guaranteeing the results of this. It might sound a little experimental. I've now brought in a brass instrument so that I can control the pitch of a brass instrument at the same time. So if I kind of go like this, I'm getting nothing. So controlling the effects of the synth on the piano by using my voice, or the sample package, whatever it is, I'm not sure. And I'm controlling the brass pitch using my voice. And so that's kind of one of the nice things, again, but that's my demo over, is that you can integrate Dubler with existing hardware, either kind of external stuff like the Korg, or, you know, much that would love it, some like great Moogs or something like that, but also with kind of more typical MIDI controls that you might already have, like just a simple MIDI keyboard where you're controlling the effects on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the real bonus of it, is if your hardware is quite limited, then you can actually expand it using this.
This is in keeping with last week's feature of how slowly can I eat a tangerine. This one's really dry, so it's going to be very slow. Okay, I'm going to move on to some of these questions. Kelly, just shout out if we get some more in from the floor. Okay, and yeah, go for it. I mean, hopefully it won't be as absolutely desiccated as this one. Is that the right word? Anyway, the names that we've got on these questions are related to the I think the email addresses you submitted them with. So apologies if this is I get your names wrong, or even if they're not your names at all, because actually they're handles almost. So first question comes from Shamani Costeo. See what I was saying? You know, this is I set myself up for a fall. Which free software works with your kit? Do you have an answer for that? I've got a couple of those.
Fruity Loops is free. It used to be free. There's a free version of that. You can, I don't know. It's up to you really.
GarageBand.
Yeah, GarageBand.
GarageBand. If you've got a Mac, that is free with every Mac. I mean, there's a few others, right? What's that door that's just the band lab of
Cakewalk.
Cakewalk. We haven't tried with Cakewalk, but that's free, isn't it? I mean, basically, if it can take, if it can be controlled by MIDI, then it can be controlled by Dubler. And if it's free and it can be controlled by MIDI, then that's the free software that works with our kit.
Yeah, that's it.
Most
software uses standard implementation of MIDI, and as long as it accepts CC messages and note-on messages, then yeah, it will work. Same with hardware. If a hardware doesn't accept, CC messages to control something, then you won't be able to use the effects. But most hardware does. And how's that mapping?
And we've kind of, that's one of the reasons why, as a default, we've got the drums mapped to channel 10. Is because that would be the traditional MIDI channel for drums on external synths.
But yeah, that's also changeable. So we can. One of the things I didn't mention was that I can control the MIDI channel of the synths. At the moment, I can also do that with the drums.
Yeah, I think there's actually a question on this. I'll maybe skip straight to it, because what you're seeing at the moment is the beta 1.0, the software that will be released in October with as part of the Dubler Studio kit will be more advanced than this, and it will be not just kind of at the moment there's still some polishing to be done on the user interface, but also there will be a couple of slightly different features. Now our main focus is about making sure that we deliver what we said we were going to deliver when we said we were going to deliver it. So we got loads of ideas about other stuff that we want to implement, but we're not going to do that in the first version necessarily, because we want to make sure the first version is delivered on time and working really well. But if you do back on Kickstarter, then you'll still be getting the updates anyway. You'll already have the base software, and then any functionality that we add to Dubler will come out as an update that you'll just get as a kind of an automatic install. But anyway, back to this question, which was from Brett Rafiki says, can each trigger be directed to its own MIDI channel? Well, there's a few questions, but let's just start by answering that. And the answer to that at the moment, and may well also be later on in that case, but at the moment is no. You can't, every single sample can't be, keep me straight here, Cam, is that right? You can't map, all samples go to the same MIDI channel at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment. If enough people request that, and if you want that kind of granularity, That's something that might be good to put in. But yeah, at the moment, drums are on channel 10.
Mm-hmm.
We will implement being able to switch the channel. But at the moment, yeah, having it that granular, we haven't had many use cases for that.
It's not huge. I mean, what I should say is, so let's just switch this back to this. One thing that you can do there, Brett, is you can map all of the, you can MIDI map the triggers. So that actually opens up a certain amount of freedom anyway, because you could have two different drum racks and MIDI map one set of your samples to one side and one set to another. It would just be a slightly different way of doing it. So there's still like a lot you can do. Anyway, I'll move on to
one of the only use cases for that, just carrying on from that, is I can see it's hardware actually. If your hardware is locked to a certain channel, usually it will be channel 10. But yeah.
So I think that's what it's going on to say is like making a sound. That's me. I'm translating TSK to be that's sound to trigger a hi-hat on a Roland TR8, but a sound to trigger a shaker in Ableton. So that is the kind of, would you want to be able to change it like that?
I would say you could get around doing that in other ways.
Yeah,
so
you
could just leave that drum note blank in Ableton and have it coming out into the Roland.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's true. That's a good way of doing it. How many output channels do we have?
What, the maximum number possible, or?
Well, yeah, it's you choose. Well, I mean, the drums and the synths are on two different channels, so in a way, two.
Yeah.
And but then you can change them.
Go up to MIDI channel 16 as the standard, I think.
Also, I'd like to confirm I can rig up an Ableton drum rack, which I think you've shown already possible, and control multiple devices simultaneously. Yes, I can confirm.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you were doing just then in that demo.
Yeah, although I didn't do any beatboxing, which is not my favourite. Okay, so Eddie Schneider says, please demonstrate pitch bend and modulation vibrato singing.
Okay, so I demonstrated that a little bit of the hardware, but we could.
Should we do it on? Should we do this through Logic? Just have a quick.
Should we give that a go?
Look on this. So in Logic we've got funk bass blast.
Let's try a different one.
You think? Okay, let's. What should we go for? Ambient lead. Have we got anything coming through on this?
So not at the moment. One thing that we'll need to do, I'll just show you in Dubler. It's as simple as just putting the MIDI channel back to our dynamic virtual output.
Yeah, good move. Can we, seeing as I've just grabbed the mic straight off you, could have gone my profile?
Of course, yeah. One thing I'll show you is we've got George's profile saved here. Okay, back to Logic.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so now we need to...
And also because we just changed the synths, it's probably not going to be on the right channel. Okay, so well, I don't know why all these recommendations coming up. So on the synth, we want to be on channel 1, and on the drum rack, we want to be on channel 10. So this is the synth that we've just selected. Is this ambient lead here? I don't know what
so what we'll need to do is match the pitch bend range.
Yeah. How would we do that? It's probably, let's just say it's probably
easier to do that in Dubler.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess it's about +or -5.
You reckon? I reckon 2.
Okay. Okay.
But we'll try your guess first. You got better here.
No.
So, we could actually look in Logic and find this out. You don't have to guess. This is just a little bit of fun. Now, one thing is with pitch bend on, the key lock doesn't make as much sense anymore. So I might just take it off. This to be a bit louder. Maybe on.
So it's coming directly out.
So let's. I'm trying to work out how I'm illustrating pitch bend. So vibrato. I mean, actually, a good synth sometimes to a good thing to do would be like a kind of trombone style synth. How do I get back to that? All right, so that would be studio horns, single instruments. Okay, and trombone one. Let's try that. Okay, so annoyingly it's switched over. Keep on channel 1.
Apparently your voices are quite low, but the
Okay.
synths
Let's try to just keep this closer to us.
I'm trying my best to do some vibrato there. Okay, so anyway, I hope that helps illustrate it. Obviously, if you've got certain instruments like strings, violins, stuff like that, they lend themselves better to vibrato anyway. Sometimes if you apply the concept of pitch bend to an instrument that doesn't normally have pitch bend on it, it can have not a really nice effect to it, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of experimentation to be done there. Whereas if you select like synths particularly, that tend to be much more kind of continuous, if you put on like pitch bend on something which is a bit more discreet like a piano, it can sound a bit funky.
Yeah.
So yeah, one to experiment on.
Yeah.
So I just totally took over that then.
Oh, nice.
I've got some questions coming through as well.
Okay.
If you would like to answer them.
Yeah, throw one in.
Okay, so question from Ornella.
I'm going to repeat these questions just in case you can't hear what Kelly's saying. So Kelly's just asking a question. I'll repeat it.
Can you see them? You can't see them there.
No.
No. Okay, it's fine. So Ornella says, can I use the voice for the melodies and, for example, the Rowley light pad block or seaboard block at the same time, or multiple orchestral instruments at the same time? For example, one instrument with the voice and one with the keyboard with the voice.
Oh,
Kind
nice.
of just
I think we
maybe that's
demonstrated that earlier.
you can. I don't know specifically for some of those how. We haven't tested some of them, like the Rowley blocks, for example. But yes, I mean, I would just say yes. We've just done it with the MIDI keyboard there, so probably I think. And we're there with the MIDI keyboard. I don't know if you didn't join before we did that. It'd be worth scrolling back a little bit because I was demoing, controlling multiple different types of string instrument on the keys, where I was switching between them by the sound of my voice, kind of R, E, that kind of thing. But then I was also simultaneously controlling like a brass line by the pitch of my voice. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. So Tam Curry, does Dubler send aftertouch? Is that possible?
No, not at the moment. But one of the things that we're thinking of doing is sending out more expression through extending these. Again, that's not a core feature. It's a nice to have. But yeah, we'll be looking at sending things out like aftertouch eventually.
Yeah, and again, I guess that'd be something that we can, when we are sending that kind of information, that we'll be able to integrate well with other devices.
Yeah, because only a few VSTs and other things support aftertouch. So yeah.
Have you got more, or shall I jump in?
That's all, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to carry on with some of these then. I'm interested in having. Sorry, this is Calden 2K. I'm interested in having a voice or musical instrument like a saxophone or violin translate into a melodic line, a melody. I would like to see more examples of that, creating a melody or melodic line instead of drum rhythms. So I'm not entirely sure, because there's two parts to this question, two ways to interpret it, I suppose. One is just like controlling synth lines. There's a bit more on that in the last AMA. I think the video should still be on our Facebook feed.
I'm going to upload it to YouTube.
And we're going to upload it to YouTube once we've cut off the first 5 minutes of me swearing. And and there are some other videos kicking around. Maybe what we'll do at some point is like I think what would be really cool is to have someone break down creating a song on it, including controlling all the melodic lines in it, bass parts, and all the parts of the composition. I don't know when we'll do that, but we'll do it at some point. And the other way to interpret the question is to say, I'm interested in having a voice or musical instrument like a saxophone, blah, blah, blah. So could you mic up an instrument and then use that to control Dubler? And the answer to that is yes, you can, but there are obviously some limitations with it in so much as we're focused on the voice, so we keep it monophonic. So if you've got a guitar and you start playing chords, it's not going to recognise the chord. But if you start getting a guitar and you start playing individual notes, it is going to get that. And we're going to do an AMA on external inputs that aren't the voice.
Yeah.
I think maybe the next one, if there's enough interest in that, then we'll do that.
Yeah. My favourite one to do is drums, actually, using drumsticks on different
What do you
parts
use?
of the table. Yeah.
Pans.
Yeah, pans, pots, everything.
We have actually
drum
mic'd
kit.
up a drum kit, and we've got this idea for a bit of a crazy one where we use we mic up a drum kit, and then there was absolutely no point in doing this. This is just for fun, pure experimental. Mic up a drum kit, have it going into Dubler, and then have it coming out and going to those, what are they called? The artificial drumsticks. So it just goes like full circle for no reason. So Ross Styler Hancock says, I want to sing a melody into the mic and have a MIDI file recorded that tracks the melody. Can your system do this? Yeah, that's it. That's a nice, easy one for us, Ross. Because yes, we're using Logic here, but you could record all of this. All of that we're creating, we could record in Logic. And in actual fact, not in these videos because they're live, but in some of the other videos, some of the videos I tried to keep them live just to prove that the latency is as we're saying it is. But you can also just record, if you're recording multiple parts and you want to thread together for a video, we're often recording the MIDI to do that. Optonoise says, can you demo some harmonies? Perhaps with a time delay? Okay, I think I read this question earlier. So it's easier to hear the difference between singer and instruments. Also, if you have a delay, could you add some AI somehow? Basically, what Optonoise is asking here is almost, could you do a call and response style thing?
Okay. Well, yeah, it depends how complex you want to go with it. Or is he saying, like, if we delay it, can it be more accurate?
No, well, so the question then goes on to basically say, so the DAW takes your notes and then riffs on them.
Okay, yeah, I see.
I'm just going to say no.
Yeah. I mean, that's not something that we've got in the pipeline. You could do that.
It's a super cool idea, but it's a little bit further away from what we're doing. I think there's this whole conversation about using artificial intelligence in music, and it's quite easy for us to we've sat on a few panels and stuff like that. It's easy for us to stay on the right side of a lot of musicians that dislike the idea of artificial intelligence in music, because what we're doing is direct control for the user. There is no generation, there's no compositional generation going on. Any output is a direct relationship to your input. And you could say, people said, if you look at a piano, piano is a button where when you press a button, a noise comes out. And so in that regard, the idea of it cheating is as much as it's cheating with a piano, because you make a sound and a sound comes out. And that sound that comes out is directly related to the input action that you take. And there's no compositional support involved in that. That's not to say that it's not really cool, actually, though, particularly this idea of call and response. And I think there will be a lot of that in the future of machine learning and music, but not in Dubler, probably.
Yeah, that's
never
it.
Say never.
It's mostly about expressive control, and our app is a controller. So it's allowing the human greater control rather than less control.
Okay, this one straight to you, Cam. This is by. This is another question. This is by Stinge Koek. Sorry. Is it usable live on stage behind a wall of speakers with rumble, or between/in front of monitors? Can it still pick up your vocals good enough to trigger things tight and right?
So this is something we actually we were dealing with early on, maybe about 8 months ago, and a lot of work. So we got our on-set detection very tuned and working really well when we were using it in our work environment and at home. But then we take it out, and if there's even a bit of background noise, a bit of music playing, we wouldn't detect any onsets or drums. So one of the things we've had to do is really work on that and get a lot of noise suppression in there. And we did that through several methods of kind of tuning it to different examples. But the upshot is that it now works really well with background noise. So we've been out demoing it at noisy stands and everything all around us, and people just come up, take the mic and try it, and it works perfectly.
I think that is true. We've been at some really noisy places, and it works really well. That said, to be very specific on this question, behind a wall of speakers or in front of monitors, we haven't tested it like that. We haven't been, on stage at like a proper big gig event where you'd have, a rack or exactly, some decent stage monitors and stuff like that. We'd have to test that to be absolutely honest about it. My suspicion is that the biggest risk is getting pitched feedback.
Definitely, and that's something we're working on at the moment, is actually the synth side of things. We've had some feedback from the beta testers, and they said it's a little bit oversensitive for the synths, so that's our next lot of work is putting a gate on the synth and making it
and stuff like that is the exact reason why the delivery date is October, because we want to make sure that all of those things are nicely ironed out.
Exactly.
Fender Cayenne. God, I'm sorry. Will there be a VST or AU version of the software?
Not at the moment. It's a standalone desktop app. There's certain limitations to having it as a VST, which means that we can't route in our own mic input and we can't route the MIDI out. So it's very difficult to have a VST that's audio in and then MIDI out, and then what is that MIDI out going to? But we have discussed doing our own set of VSTs. That would be something.
It's something I imagine that we'll get around to doing, along with doing other things like creating pre-populated control surfaces and stuff like that. Maybe some max patches as well. And maybe actually for something like max patches, it may well be that some of you guys start creating stuff, and we might have a platform for sharing that, for downloading max patches related to. Who knows? There's just a load of we don't have any direct plans for that now, but I can certainly see it growing out in terms of more supporting stuff for use with Dubler. Okay, this is the last question, unless there's any more on the Facebook feed coming through.
No, there's not really any more questions. There's I think on the call and response stuff, there's a further comment which says, yes, full song creation and completed by specialists for the top 4 doors or something. But just an idea. It's not really a question.
Cool. Well, the other thing is, if you're watching this not live, or a question comes to you afterwards, still just pop it in the comments, because we'll be doing more AMAs and we can pick up some of these comments later. And I will also say, I'm seeing some comments I've managed to get it up now. I'm seeing some comments that are just like saying, just some nice things, basically. So thank you very much. Thanks for watching this, and thanks for your support. I think that's something that we skipped. Anyway, before I start getting too teary-eyed, I will ask the last question. Which is by GB Koch, and they say, is it possible to assign different lengths of notes to different patches, for instance staccato, marcato, legato, or trigger transitions, portamento transitions? It would be amazing not to have to use manual key switches.
So having the note lengths in there, that's another thing that we want to work on for percussive sounds, at least. So with percussive sounds, at the moment, when it detects a percussive sound, it sends it out as a short MIDI note. We have had some systems in the past working. I know the prototype was working with this, where you could hold it. So I think that's what you're talking about, right? So you can go tss, and it will hold the note for that long, or if you do it really short, it will be like a very thin MIDI note. That's something we can support, and it needs a bit of work to get it right and do it well.
Well, it's possible as well, because it depends how you're interpreting what exactly you want to do, because it was quite a specific, complicated question. It might be that you can also map the triggers to actually be, if you're switching between things, you could have trigger switches for this. And we were chatting to a drummer who does a solo performance, and Moses Boyd, actually, you should check out his work, it's awesome. We're chatting to him about it, and obviously when you're a professional drummer like that, you're not going to turn to beatboxing in order to trigger your drums, unless you're planning on doing something totally different, experimental to what you're used to doing. But if you're sitting there, both your hands busy, both your feet busy, if you've got some kind of live DAW setup going on as well, some digital setup, how do you switch between things? And of course, Moses is set up there with like a kind of drum pad rack to be switching between stuff, but that still requires you to move away from what you're doing. And so he was talking about how good it would be if you could actually just trigger, and also timed trigger, like not just waiting for the next bar to come round, but actually when you want, trigger something which maybe changes from one set to the next or something like that. Now you could do all of that with Dubler by using all of the drum triggers just to be mapped to different MIDI triggers, different key switches.
Yeah, that's it. It's a MIDI message is quite flexible, especially in something like Ableton. You can map a MIDI note to like turning on and off different devices. So yeah, you can change instrument by making a sound, something like that. I'll just extend that question as well with talking about the kind of different timbres for different ways of making a sound. We're sending out velocity, so if you make a quiet sound, it could play something legato. So you could have a switch on the velocity or something like that.
Cool. Well, I think that is all the questions that we've got here. I think that's all the questions that we've had on the Facebook page. Once again, thank you so much for your interest, your questions, your support, backing us on the Kickstarter, telling your friends, all this stuff. We really appreciate. We've still got 14 days to go. It's going really well, and we'll be continuing to update you between now and the end of the campaign, and from the end of the campaign all the way onwards until you get your Double Studio kits delivered through your door, and then afterwards onto updates and community and sharing and stuff like that. And thank you for being along this long but exciting and fun journey with us. So there'll be another AMA probably next week. We'll yet to set the day, and the theme may well be on triggering samples and controlling synths with other inputs than the voice, but it could also be other things. There's loads of things we want to do them on. So if you've got any suggestions, pop them in the comments, let us know, send us any questions, and we'll catch you soon.
Yep. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.